What's an invoice? What does it look like? And why is it important? That's the kind of stuff we're going to talk about today. Let's dive right into it. Is an invoice the same as a receipt? And the answer is no. See, the invoice is actually made before the transaction. The receipt is made after the transaction. The invoice also serves as the record of services that have been done or parts that have been sold. And it is also a request for funds. And a receipt is basically the record that shows the funds have been transferred over to the seller. So why is an invoice so important? Well, because for one, your business needs to get paid. Invoices serve as an itemized record of what and why a customer owes you. The buyer needs to know what goods and services they are paying for, and an invoice is a good itemized report of what is being charged. An invoice also splits out the sales taxes, which is required by law for any registered business. Many states are different on taxes, so please check with your local tax authority website on the specifics. Invoices are very important from an accounting standpoint as well because they're used to record accounting entries for both the buyer and the seller. They're also used to track accounts receivables and accounts payables. Now, what does an invoice look like? Here we have an example of an invoice that I've created within Excel. Now, invoices can be created within your billing software or within your accounting software, or if you have them by paper. Either way works, you just need some way to record the transactions that you are doing, the repairs, the parts you sell, it all needs to be recorded. If you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So the one thing I can tell you is that within the business that I run, I actually have both a billing and an accounting software. Now, the billing software, I create my invoices through that, and it transfers automatically to my accounting software. Now, with the billing software I use to track my invoices as well as the identifying factors for my technicians, such as the times it takes for them to do the job versus the time it took them to do the job. Basically, their efficiency as well as their utilization. If they were there at the job if they were working for 8 hours, clocked in, or are they billing out at least 8 hours or more? With that, I can measure my technicians and decide which one is doing good, which one's not, which one needs more training, so on and so forth. My accounting software, then I can track my accounts payables and my accounts receivables. Who owes me money? When do they owe me money? How much money have I earned throughout the month, throughout the year, throughout the quarter, and as well as what taxes that I owe. All that stuff is all recorded within my accounting software. I can go back through bank transactions and make sure that the parts that I have purchased are in my bank transactions and I can match them up. But that can be all covered within another video. So today we're only going to discuss invoices and how to create them. So first thing, of course, you need to know is you got to have your shop. You got to have your shop name, your business name. You got to have the information. Customers need to know who the heck is charging them. Second thing is you're going to need the customer's information. So that way you know you're charging the right customer and the customer knows it's to them. You're charging it correctly to them. The other thing, of course, is you're going to need an identifying number to identify each individual invoice. So the invoice numbers have to be different for every little invoice. If they're not, then you're doing something wrong. If they are the same as another invoice, you're going to get confused very fast. So you need to make sure these are always different. Always assign a numerical value to them. The other thing is your date. Of course, you're going to need your date. That's obviously a given. It's common sense. You're going to need to know when this repair was done for many reasons. Customer ID, that's optional. You can assign a customer ID number to each individual customer if you like. I don't actually do this. I actually just have their customer name. Customer ID is, like I said, it's just an optional number that you assign to that particular account. Terms, of course, is going to be your net 30, net 10, net 45. Of course, this customer here does not have an account with us, so they are due upon receipt. It also can be called COD. but it just means that this customer is going to need to pay after the services have been done. They cannot leave the job site until it is paid. The other items that I have, of course, is my unit number, my VIN, unit type, and mileage. And I think these are very important to have on your invoice so the customer knows exactly which unit you worked on. If you go out and service a trailer and it has a truck connected to it, then the customer knows which unit you worked on, if you worked on the trailer or the truck. Especially when you have different labor rates, you need to also identify if you worked on the truck or the trailer. So I like to have the unit number, the VIN number, so we understand that which exact unit we worked on, because there are customers that have hundreds of units, and sometimes the numbers can be jumbled up. You can have a 1040, and then you can have a 1404, and it could get jumbled up very easily, and you can also identify those units by the VIN number, so that way it's easier for you and the customer whenever there comes any kind of conflict or argument. The unit type is very important. That goes with the unit number. You want to make sure that you're billing out the right labor rate depending on the actual unit that you work on. If it's a trailer, you know you're going to have different labor rates than if it's a truck. Mileage is very important, I believe, so that way the customer can go back and identify when particular jobs were done. So when they're getting their maintenance done, it helps them out. It also helps you out. So if a customer calls you on the spot and says, hey, can you tell me when this PM or service was done, what mileage, you can then tell them this was done, that this many miles, and it's going to be due at such and such next miles. PM tracking is very helpful, and it can get you a lot of business if you keep up with the customer's PMs. But the mileage really can go for trucks, reefers, trailers. Trailers have a hub meter. Then, of course, you want to put that mileage on the hub meter mileage on your invoice. If it does not, then, of course, you can just put 0. Not all trailers have hub meters. Okay, so now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the actual invoice itself. So as you can see here, this invoice has a service call on it. This particular job was a mobile service. We're going to use this as an example. At this point, you should already have your markup scale ready. You should already know how you're going to do your parts. If you don't know, you need to go to a previous video of mine to tell you exactly how to use those markup scales. So the other thing that you need to have is your labor rates. You need to make sure that you know exactly what you're going to be charging. So at this point, you should have your labor rates already written down. Either your dispatcher or yourself should already know exactly what these are. You should actually have them memorized by heart. So for this particular transaction, we had to get a certain amount of information. So this call came in, and the information that I got was the company's name, which is Too Fast Trucking Services. Where the location is, they're located on I-20 eastbound near exit 440 on the shoulder. So obviously they were not in a parking lot or anywhere particular. They were actually on the side of the highway. The truck, it was a 13. The identifying number was 1334, was the unit number. It's a red Peterbilt. Trailer, it was 1004 utility trailer, and of course it has Too Fast 2 Trucking logo. So I have my identifiers on here as well, so I can identify the actual unit itself. I have the driver's name, which is just in time, kind of funny. Driver's phone number, I have the important stuff there, called in by the person, Billy Joe, and I have how he's going to pay. Billy will pay bill over the phone using a credit card. So that's the information that we need. We also need to know why the call came in. And of course, this call came in because his brakes locked up while driving. That is the complaint. So the one thing you need to know on an invoice is you need to have your 3 C's. So the 3 C's are your cause, your complaint, and your correction. Okay? Those should be on every invoice. Very important. So let's go ahead and get this invoice created. So now here we have the service call. The service call, we know that we're going to charge $95 an hour because that is what we say here. Now, it says also that we do a 2-hour minimum. That doesn't mean we charge the service call twice. It means we charge the service call once here, just like we did, $95, and we charge 2 hours minimum on our labor rate. So it doesn't matter if the tech went out there and only did the job for 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We charge 2 hours because that is our requirement. That is the law that we wrote for our company, the policy. Okay, so you have to make your customer understand that is your rate. When he calls, you let them know it's $95 service call, 2-hour minimum. So this technician, experienced technician, had to go out here and deal with a brake chamber issue because the brakes locked up. Turns out the brakes were actually broken, or the brake chamber on the right front was broken, and it needed to be replaced. Took the tech maybe 45 minutes to get it done because it's an experienced tech. He knows what he's doing. So of course, no matter what, you're going to charge that 2 hours. 2 hours at $65 an hour is $130. Now your description needs to be, like I said, with your 3 C's, and needs to be descriptive. Customers love this, and you should love it as well. So you know what the heck you're charging, and you can use it for a negotiation tool the next time that you talk with your customer in case he's like trying to negotiate the price with you. And you can say, Mr. Customer, I have it in the invoice what we did. So here are 3 C's. Okay, so first is the cause. The brakes locked up while driving. Okay, so the tech arrived on the scene and found the right front brake chamber is broken from mounting bolts. Okay, so that's the cause. Okay, so the complaint, of course, is the brakes are locked up while driving. Now the correction is installed new brake chamber and adjusted brakes to DOT specs. So that completes the 3 C's. So we had to purchase a brake chamber in order to perform this job. So now comes a question of how much do we charge? This is where your markup scales come in for your parts. So we need to go back to our markup scale and identify exactly how much we need to mark up. So we can see here that the cost was $35. That's how much we paid for it at a vendor. So on our markup scale, this is going to be a walk-in customer. So we see here that between 25 and 150, we need to charge 125%. So of course, our price falls within that. $35 is how much we paid for this brake chamber. So we know that that cost is $35, and we need to mark it up 125%. Of course, I showed you this in an earlier video. 35 times 1.25 is $43.75 is what we're going to charge on top of what we paid for the part. So $43.75 will turn into our profit. So we add $43 on top of what we paid for it, $35. Add them together and you get $78.75, and that is what you charge your customer. So now we know $78.75 is what we charge, and we can see here that we're making profit. So with your parts, you're going to need to do shop supplies. Shop supplies is going to be 20%. What I like to do is just 20%. You can do between 15 to 20, however you choose, of just the parts. I don't do it against the labor because there are some jobs where you're not going to be using shop supplies. And if you want to know exactly what shop supplies are, I will do a video specifically on the breakdown of only shop supplies. But for now, we're going to need to charge shop supplies on every invoice. Unless a customer complains about it, then you can break it out and itemize the parts. And we will do a later video on the exact items that signify as shop supplies. So 20% of $78.75 is $15.75. And of course, you just take your calculator and you take the price of the parts. Total price of the parts is $78.75. Times that by 0.20 and you get $15.75. So now, once you got your shop supplies on there, you got your parts, we have our labor, we have our service call. The total price comes out to $319.50 before taxes. Now I like to break out the parts and the labor so the customer sees exactly what they're paying for. So labor was $225. The parts themselves with $94.50. And yes, service call counts as labor. Now, of course, if you're paying your technician by commission, he's not going to get a piece of the service call. He's only going to get a piece of the labor. Service call covers your truck, your fuel for your truck, and the time it took to pay your technician to go out there, if he's an hourly associate or what have you. The tax rate, of course, depends on what state you're in, depends on what tax rate you charge. So let's say the tax rate is 8.25 as an example. Then you add your tax rate here. So 8.25% of our subtotal is $26.36. So our total is going to be $345.86. So here we have the profit of what we made. You always want to make sure that you have profit on every invoice. The percentage of profit is up to you, but I always like to see above 45% profit margin on my invoices. We can go through all of that later. But for right now, you want to make sure that your parts is marked up to your markup scale and that your shop supplies are on your tickets, and you will actually always be above a good margin whenever you do this. That is why we have those markup scales in place and why we have our labor rates in place. So now on this particular ticket, we actually made $61.25 profit. We only had to pay $35 in parts. Now, when it comes to the technician, as long as your technician's efficiency is good, you should be profitable. Of course, if your technician, the labor time was, let's say, 2 hours on this particular ticket, but it took him 1 hour to do the job, his efficiency is 200%. He did the job in half the time. So he is very efficient. You always want to make sure your techs are efficient, and that's how you measure if they're making you money or not. Now, if you have if you have a software that actually can measure efficiency and utilization, it is very important that you do that. And I'll go through another video which shows exactly how to measure utilization and efficiency in order to determine if your employee is profitable for you. And if they're not profitable, then you're going to need to do some training, or you're going to need to make some decisions on what to do with that employee, because business is business. You need to make sure that your business can pay its overhead costs and stay in business. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.